Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I am your host, Tanya Shrum, and we are joined with the Arts and Features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, who's also going to bring us the hard-hitting news this week. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good to see you, Tanya.
Always a pleasure. And you are wearing both hats this week.
So true. I am covering for Thad this week as he is away, but we have a couple of really great stories, really great news stories in the paper this week, both about criminal justice, and the one that's on the cover is from Cal Matters.
Yes, and I'm really excited that we're covering this because I actually read it online a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that we knew we could share online and that it would reach a certain portion of the public, but it felt important enough in terms of not only our community, local people, the gentleman who is the center of this story is from Hoopa, but also because this is a moment where we get to look at and share with people some information about how criminal justice works in California that you might not know. It certainly was surprising to me to read about it. And so it felt important enough and it touched locally enough that we felt like we wanted to share it in the paper as well on the cover. So this story starts, and it's a long one, so make time for it. This story starts in 1976, and it begins with the death of a child. Sadly, a little boy, 6-year-old Willie Cook, was taken from his father's pickup truck in Happy Camp. And this is over by Klamath National Forest, if you're not familiar. The title of this story is The Man Who Unsolved a Murder, because at some point, this murder went unsolved for many, many years. And then after 32 years, sheriff's deputies got what they thought was a break in the case and made an arrest. And this is the story about the defense investigator who basically unraveled the case against the Hoopa man, Gregory Nelson, who was at the time 51 when he was arrested for this murder that took place in 1976. And arrested, interrogated for 2 days, and eventually confessed to a murder, the case for which is built pretty much completely on one eyewitness testimony from 32 years ago. It's a wild story. So when we hear, or at least when I hear, because I have watched a lot of Law and Order, ladies and gentlemen, but when I hear that someone has confessed, this is, I think we're all trained by media and by television and everything else that that's the end of the story. Somebody has confessed. But confessions that don't end up being true are a thing. And in this story, you're going to learn about, sadly, how often that might be happening and under what circumstances that happens. 2 days of interrogation in this case. When Nelson was arrested, he was arrested with a couple grams of meth and some syringes in his pocket. So he's already in trouble. And from there, the police really pushed him, apparently lied about the kind of evidence they had, and got to the point where he felt like his best way to take care of himself, to defend himself, was to confess and make this as little time as he could serve, right? So, in fact, 32 years ago, the super crisp and clean memory that Steve Marshall said he had of seeing Nelson abduct this boy, Willie Cook, in 1976 was demonstrably false. By the end of this story, you'll see the ways in which this story falls apart. And his story changed over time. He added details, changed details, all sorts of things that should have been a red flag for the prosecution, but they went forward with it anyway. And it's an astounding story on its own, but it is really, to me, shocking because the case pivoted on this investigator, and not everybody gets an investigator. What Cal Matters found was that poor people accused of crimes, accounting for at least 80% of criminal defendants in California, are routinely convicted without anyone investigating the charges against them. So that's on your defense attorney to do. But apparently, unlike on The Good Wife, where Kalinda goes undercover to find out everything about your case, if you have a public defender, there isn't always budget, there isn't always a person who is going to look into your case. And that means all kinds of wild things can go by. It may interest you to know that only 7 California counties meet the widely accepted minimum standard of 1 investigator for every 3 attorneys. Humboldt County is included there, and Cal Matters found that 5 defense investigators and 14 public defenders are on the case here in Humboldt, though defense investigators are still outnumbered 2-to-1 by prosecutorial investigators. So the team is uneven, but at least there's a team in place in Humboldt County. Hey, isn't that unusual? One time when we get to say we're actually prepared to do justice, it's great. Instead of hearing about how clogged our courts are, how few judges we have, and how people won't show up for jury duty, at least we have some defense investigators. It's really incredible in terms of, reading this story, not only how the case unfolded, how close this man came to basically losing his freedom and being in prison for the rest of his life, and how many people must be in the same or similar circumstances in terms of not having a chance, not having a way for someone to prove their case. So it's a great read, and for people who are into true crime, you need to read this because it will change the way you look at how things are investigated, for sure. Indeed, that's got to be really one of the most heartbreaking parts of it, right? Is you think you have this closure, you think you have justice, and you don't.
It was really disturbing and really disheartening to find out that without a defense investigator, you're right, this man accused would have lost his freedom.
There are a couple of harrowing anecdotes of other people who similarly came close in the story, and I can't urge you enough to give it a read, especially, like I said, if you are a person who's listening to true crime podcasts and you're listening to how police go about investigating things and then it moves to the courts. This really adds another dimension to your understanding of how all that works and what some of the pitfalls are.
Well, I encourage everybody to pick up the journal and read the complete story. I read it again last night to prepare for the show and was still amazed at the breakdown of the eyewitness and how they were just moving forward anyway.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And unfortunately, it is also tied to the news story that Kim Ware wrote for the Journal.
Yes, the wonderful Kim Ware has a story for us this week. It is titled Inflammatory and Prejudicial. This refers to some evidence that was admitted into a first-degree murder trial in 2023. So you may recall in 2023, an Alder Point man named Jake Henry Combs, who was, I believe, in his 20s at the time, was convicted for murder, first-degree murder of a gentleman named John Early, who was 25. So at that time, Combs claimed self-defense, saying that, yes, he did shoot John Early, but it was in self-defense. So he's serving 50 years to life for that fatal shooting. But then, First District Court of Appeal has just denied California Attorney General's office request for a rehearing on a decision that just came down, and that is that the conviction has been overturned. This does not happen a lot, but the conviction is overturned because it was found by the appellate court that evidence was admitted that should not have been admitted. It was considered inflammatory and prejudicial. So this is a long and convoluted bunch of filings, and the documentation in it was very much about referring to different case law, different precedents, and Kim Ware has really boiled this down for us in a digestible form so we can understand it, because it feels crazy, right? You have a conviction that has happened. A jury of his peers decided, yes, you are guilty, and sent him off to prison where he was serving at Calipatria State Prison. But then, looking back at what happened in that trial, the appellate court has determined that there was enough of a chance that this evidence that should not have been admitted swayed jurors because they were on the fence. They were asking a lot of questions. They were sending a lot of questions back to the court, asking for notes, asking for clarification, that they were close enough on the fence that this information that should not have been shared might have swayed him, and that without that information, he might not have been convicted. So that you're asking yourself now, what kind of information could that have been? What kind of evidence could it have been? It was, wow, it's inflammatory. It is a videotape of an assault in prison while awaiting trial, in which Combs is seen to attack an assault another prisoner who was in a wheelchair. This sounds bad. They also included that they had no evidence for this, but just stated the unsubstantiated report that this was a racially motivated attack. This was a wild choice to include from the standpoint of those of us in the newsroom talking about it. But according to Cockrum, at that point, the door was open for bringing in evidence that spoke to character and spoke to temperament, because of the fact that character and temperament of the victim were brought into discussion during the trial, right? To say that the victim's character and temperament were such that Combs needed to defend himself against this person, that was brought in. So the prosecution brought in this videotape, and boy, did it change. I'm imagining sitting in a jury, right, and being told what kind of person Combs is, and then seeing this video, that would really change how you see him, right? Whether that was enough to shift a guilty verdict or an innocent verdict, or not guilty verdict, I should say, it's hard to say, but it's iffy enough that the appellate court said, we've got to overturn this conviction. Kim spoke to David Levine, who has been quoted in our paper before. You might have heard his name. He's at the University of California College of Law, San Francisco, and he was talking about why this is so important. And I really appreciated this quote. He said, the basic standard is you don't get a perfect trial, you get a fair trial. Mistakes can happen, but there are things that are structural errors, things that are not harmless errors that require reversal, and this is one of those instances. And so you can see how this is really traumatic, right? Once again, we have a family that thinks that justice has been served, the case is closed, and now it's not. Now it's overturned.
It's also fascinating to me that it was ever admitted into the court case in the first place, that the judge, that the prosecutors allowed that.
Yeah.
that's kind of an aside.
Yeah, it is really something. It was used in the closing argument also, which is additionally wild. Um, at one point, the jury was told by the prosecutor in the closing argument, Mr. Combs is a violent person, and we now have two instances for you to consider where he has attacked people unprovoked. You saw the jail attack video. What Mr. Combs did to Mr. Early was murder, and was murder in the first degree. That's a very deep connection. That's not just a aside to bolster. That feels very central to the argument. And so you can see how if this is one of the legs on the stool, if that leg is not stable, it has to be looked at again. So District Attorney Stacey Eads said that to the Journal, she responded to an email to the Journal. Her office was advised the AG's office is engaged in a thorough review of the case. Whether or not the California Supreme Court will review the appellate court's decision, we don't know yet. Apparently, that's a very rare thing to happen. And it's possible that Mr. Combs will be coming by this month, basically by somewhere in July, back to Humboldt County. She also said that she anticipates a remitter being filed, which, pardon me, I'm saying it wrong, remititure. These are legal terms. I struggle with these, but basically...
Hey, we're doing our best. That will still be proud.
But it essentially is a way to appeal, right? It's another form of asking again for something to be reviewed, and it may return for another local trial. So with a jury and everything. So it's a wild story.
Which again is rough. It digs all this up for the family and all of the witnesses, and that is unfortunate.
Right? And we are once again seeing how the wheels of justice go wonky, and this week's paper is really a lot about looking at the machinery of our justice system and places where it goes off the rails. And the correction is difficult, and the correction takes its toll on everyone, on every side of a trial, on the folks who are related to the victim and the folks who are accused or are related to those who have been already convicted or accused. It's really damage all around.
And at least Stacey Eads is ready to retry it, and not just, if this were just overturned and time served. I mean, this still could be a case where this person is guilty of first-degree murder and should be, in there for the original sentence.
We'll see what happens, especially since, Combs did not say that he didn't shoot this person, right? He did not say he didn't shoot Early. He said it was self-defense. So that the context and the circumstances are going to matter a lot, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, thank you for putting on the news cap this week. And with that, we're going to shift over to the sunnier side of the street and talk about the Friday market.
The Friday night market. This is our respite from all of the tension in the world right now, locally and abroad. Going back outside and having sort of a festival event every Friday night is maybe what we all need. This week, however, just so you know, when I look at the calendar ahead, we're always working a week off at the Journal, so I have to once again refer. Please remember that the Friday night market is on Friday nights. You get out of work, you go out, except for July 4th weekend. That Friday night is reserved for 4th of July festivities. So there'll still be stuff. You can still go downtown and there'll be stuff to do. It just won't be Friday night market. So I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when I get to Friday night market is I sniff the air and start walking around looking at what I'm going to eat. And as a person who lived in New York, I miss walking and eating at the same time. It's a weird thing that I don't know if people do this in other cities, but walking and eating a slice of pizza is not weird. Walking and eating a bagel is not weird.
The only thing I've ever heard is that it's just not allowed in Japan. That's thought of as,
Yes.
uncouth.
And I must tell you that living in Japan, I was like, you want me to wait? You want me to carry this home? Are you kidding me? So, the Friday night market, I scoped out the scene. I have cased the joint for you. There are, of course, your favorites. Tanya, I know you have favorite stands. I know you do. And there are some new ones too. So I wanted to talk about the new ones. You may have heard already from Annie too, our California local journalism fellow, about the ceviche. The ceviche from Arcada Pizza and Deli, which now has a stand. That's right. It's an Arcada restaurant where you can go for late night eats, award-winning French fries, a very good tuna melt. But they also have a stand at the Dockside Market, the Humboldt Dockside Market, which happens every other week. And they've got a stand at Friday Night Market. I don't know if they're always going to have it, but they have recently, and fingers crossed it will keep coming. They have a rockfish ceviche, which is, don't freak out, it's $20 if you get it with guacamole. But it's huge. It is a boat, and it comes off of their boat. They have a fishing boat, and that's why their fish and chips are good over at APD also. But this ceviche has a little mango, has the red onion, has the jalapeno, the lime juice. It is every part of your brain lighting up with flavor, and it is those wonderful, firm chunks of hand-cut, line-caught rockfish, and it's delightful. And you can absolutely split it with another person, possibly 2 other people. I have yet to see anyone take it down alone. If you are, that's not a challenge.
That's not a challenge. Sharing is caring.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself. $15 without the guacamole, also delightful, but you may want to ask for extra chips because I found I ran through the chips a little faster. And maybe ask for a double paper tray because it is a lot and I don't want you to spill it and be sad. Next up, I am a big fan of chashu bao, which is the marvelous, marvelous Chinese steamed buns. They're so white. They're so snowy. It's like a snowball, except it's warm. And inside is stewed chashu pork and other goodies, sometimes bamboo, etc. And it's sweet and salty and barbecuey. Delight. There is one over there from K&D Kitchen. They have a stand. They also make a very nice egg roll. Large cigar-sized, lot of glass noodle. Not everybody wants a cabbagey egg roll. Some of us want a cellophane noodle filling with pork and carrots and everything else, but it's delightful. And it's a good walking and eating food. I was a big fan. The $5 meat bun you should absolutely get. They make it from scratch. Sure, you can get frozen ones around town. You can get them at Costco. But when you eat them, does it feel like anyone loves you? No. No, it's fine, but it doesn't feel like love. The homemade ones, come on, who's going to do that for you? How well do you know Wendy Chan? Be serious. So definitely go check that out. And the favorite name of the evening is La Linda. La Linda Argentinian empanadas. Are you an empanada person? You are an empanada person.
Always.
Yes. I love me a slice of Humboldt pie empanada. It's
so good.
Yes, and it's a thick, hearty crust. This is a little different because it has a thin, flaky crust. It doesn't fall apart. It's still firm. I don't know how you make your dough strong like this, but it is a thinner dough. It's more about the filling, and it is delightful. There's a picadillo beef one, a ground beef one. There's a chicken one, the shredded chicken, and it has, olives and vegetables and little bits of potato. It's a whole dinner in a little tiny hand pie.
Well,
yeah, and
cut you off. We've run out of time.
I just want you to enjoy it, Tanya. I want you to love it.
You know I will. And for all of our listeners out there, I want everybody to get to the Friday market and enjoy the fairs. Jennifer, thank you for doing double duty today. And that's all the time we have for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal is available tomorrow on newsstands, or of course you can find it online at northcoastjournal.com. My name is Tanya Schrum. Thanks for being with us, staying informed and supportive here on the North Coast.